And welcome back to This Week. Time now to get the views of our media and political experts, Nashville Democratic State Representative Mike Turner and syndicated talk show host Steve Gill. Welcome, gentlemen. Thank you very much for your time. A couple of news events let's get to first here. Just this week, Jason Mumpower surprised a lot of folks. The House Republican leader announced that he's not going to be seeking re-election after 14 years. Kind of a surprise. He was in line 2 years ago to be Speaker. That didn't happen. Were you surprised to hear what he had to say?
A little surprised, but you know, Jason's we butted heads over the years, but we've been friends, and he's a very intelligent man, and he'll be missed at the legislature.
I have given up trying to understand the cosmos of the legislature, whether it was when Lieutenant Governor Wilder was there or it's the current iteration. I got to tell you, I was surprised that Jason has decided to step aside, particularly this late, because you literally have the filing deadline imminent. So there's going to be a scramble to fill that seat. And already the scramble that's going to begin on Capitol Hill to see who tries to emerge as the Republican leader and presumptively Speaker if the Republicans can maintain a majority or expand a majority that gives them a real majority. So it's going to continue the chaos in Tennessee.
You guys can sit back and watch what happens on the other side of the aisle.
Huh? We're actually going to try to fix that problem for them by taking the House back. That's our goal. So
the other news of the week that happened just today, we're taping on Friday, is that Bill Gibbons announced he is leaving the governor's race, Republican candidate for governor. So the candidates are getting shorter, 3 now on the Republican side, 2 on the Democratic side.
Well, and we've seen the same thing happen on both sides of the aisle. The fundraising race is the mother's milk in politics. If you don't have the resources to get out there, you really are kind of making a long uphill climb. And I think for both Bill Gibbons, for Jim Kyle and others, they've seen that in this governor's race. We may still see more of the challenge of not having enough funding both in the primary and the general.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. It's costing so much to run for these races now because it's knocking a lot of good people out of the ability to run.
Are you surprised? Here we are. We're about 8 months out from the election, only about 6 months out from the primary, and really not a lot of discussion by these candidates or the media yet following these candidates.
I'm surprised they're on the Republican side they hadn't got mixed up a little more, but I expect that's going to happen pretty soon.
Well, you've had a lot of forums, you've got a lot of debates that are going on. You know, the problem is that it really is early, and frankly, Bill Haslam got out very earlier than we've seen before, which kind of moves up the organization, moves up the fundraising process, but necessarily doesn't move up, you know, the people paying attention. This is a race that's still going to come to a head in August. I think that for Ramsey and Wamp, they definitely need to start spending some of their money early because it's going to get so loud, so aggressive in the last 4 to 6 to 8 weeks of the campaign. I think this is true for congressional candidates and state House and state Senate primary candidates as well. It is going to be so loud in those last 6 or 8 weeks with all the gubernatorial money flinging around that for congressional candidates to be heard, for legislative candidates, you know, you got to figure ways to be both creative in your message and to get out early and maybe kind of bump up and go away to be able to be heard.
It's good for us in the media business. We're going to get a lot of commercials on TV and radio this summer and
the problem,
into the
though,
fall.
is that you've got so much inundation of people wanting the time that you then have
so
to decide, okay, do we knock off
right.
auto dealers? Do we knock off restaurants for guys that are only going to be on the air for only 6 or 8 weeks?
And they get the best rates.
Frankly, it's just a limited amount of time they're going to have.
Right.
You don't mind all that spending, though, with us.
No, that's fine.
This week, really all about health care this week, beginning last Sunday when the House approved the bill, late Sunday night, the President signing it earlier this week. That part of the debate, I guess, is over with. The debate on whether this is a good bill, can it be repealed, can states opt out, really just beginning. And I guess the question is, where does it go from here? We've got 14 states challenging the constitutionality, whether the federal government can mandate you buy insurance. We have some folks trying to figure out a way if states can opt out of this proposal, and others wanting to repeal the bill.
Well, we've never had a situation ever in our history where the federal government has ordered people to buy a particular good or service. The Congressional Budget Office has said that. So this is historic, and I'm not sure it's historic in a good way that you have the federal government telling us today you've got to buy this particular kind of insurance. Maybe next week it'll be this particular kind of car, this particular type of bread. I think it's a bad idea for the federal government to start telling us exactly what we have to buy, and I think constitutionally there's a good chance to bring it down, except that the courts tend to give great credence to what happens in the political arena, and winners get to set the rules.
Right. I think that we've never really had any kind of nullification in the history of the United States. I think when Andrew Jackson went down and told South Carolina he was going down there and hang them all if they tried to nullify the bill, I think that kind of set the tone for it. I think it will be found unconstitutional, and I think we'll have to move on and just determine whether we like this bill or not. And
is there a difference between difference of opinion and what's happening with this proposal and with this new now law, in that there are threats being made against congressmen who voted for and against this proposal, reports of rocks being thrown, shots being fired? It's starting to get a little out of control.
That concerns me too. We've had some calls to the House, and that should not have happened. I mean, you know, my house, and then I know Steve is some of the statements he makes. He gets some calls too sometimes, but there's no place for that in a society like America. But unfortunately, it's part of it.
We certainly had it during the Bush years too. We just didn't have the Democrats expressing any concern about it. And frankly, Bart Stupak, who's the guy that's complaining most vociferously now about getting phone calls and mean phone calls and supposedly death threats, was saying just a week or so ago that he was getting death threats from the left, from folks who were objecting to the fact that he was opposing Obamacare, and yet we didn't hear those audio tapes in the news. We didn't hear much in the outrage side from the Democrats. We ought to all be outraged if there's going to be violence actually directed at these people. But by the same token, we also need to ratchet down some of the news coverage, because some of the stuff that's being said simply isn't true. I mean, there was a report that a congressman had a coffin left in his front yard. The media then had to retract and say, okay, that wasn't actually true. So we need to also not let this stuff run out of control by people.
Don't report rumors, report what actually happened.
But there is some truth to it, too. I mean, John Lewis had the N-words used against John Lewis. And
there is no evidence that happened. In fact, there's a $10,000 bounty that's been offered to anybody who can prove that it happened. And the spitting incident has been disproved by videotape.
That may be true, but they also had the other person who assaulted the person who was a very sick person and for waving money in his face. And that was true, too. So,
well, you also had SIEU union thugs beat up a black man calling him by the N-word at a Tea Party rally this summer, and nothing was done about that. So this violence is not
I don't think that's ever been proved, too. But let's
stop the violence.
Let's agree to say it's both wrong from both sides. I'll be glad to say that. It's wrong on both accounts.
A little bit of controversy from a statement you made this week saying that some people oppose President Obama simply because he's black. Republicans took exception to it.
I think they went and said, I said some people. I didn't say Republicans. I didn't say Tennesseans. I didn't say Americans. I think it's quite obvious that some people don't like Obama for that reason. And I think that they took my words out of context and tried to make some political hay out of it. But I think it's quite obvious that some people don't like Obama because he's African American. But I never said that Jason Mumpower did. I never said Glenn Cassidy did. I said some people, and I think they tried to make some political hay out of that.
30 seconds.
Well, I think the reference was to legislation that's being pushed in the legislature. But I've known Mike Turner for a long time. We don't always agree, but I'll take him at his word.
Steve Gill, Mike Turner, appreciate very much your insight and your time. Thank you. Stay with us. This week continues in a moment.